to the Jazz Notes podcast. I'm Ben Anderson.
I'm Chandler Holt.
We are recording this on April 7th. This is our last podcast of the actual season.
Yes.
Of course, we'll be doing a recap coming up on the 14th. Maybe. That is also when Will Hardy is doing his end-of-season media.
Okay.
I wonder if they're doing it. They're probably honestly doing it at 10 o'clock, because that's usually when they do their end-of-season stuff, and everyone can go their separate ways. So I'm not sure when we're going to record this. I'm hoping to do it Monday, though.
Yeah, I was going to say, we can do it later if that runs long.
Yeah, if we have to do it Monday and recap, or maybe even Tuesday. We'll see. We'll figure it out. But this is definitely the last one of the regular season, because I checked the numbers. The Jazz aren't making the playoffs.
Shocker.
After losing yesterday to the Hawks, the Jazz have been statistically eliminated from the postseason. So anyways, as always, you can find us on Twitter at Ben's Hoops, C Holt Sports, same thing with Blue Sky. You can always reach out to us that way for the mailbag segment of the show, which is how we wrap up the show. It's usually the last half an hour or so. But we like to open the show by going over the news of the season for the Utah Jazz, or the week for the Utah Jazz. We look at what they did the past week in their games, look forward to the week ahead, and then get you caught up on the standings as well. As always, read us at KSLSports.com. But let's start with the weekly news.
First, Cody Williams out for the rest of the season. He was diagnosed with mononucleosis, so we will not see him for this last week of the season. And then happier news, Isaiah Collier. He broke John Stockton's rookie assist record against the Hornets last week with his 415th. I was looking it up. I was like, he's been awesome this year. I wonder what the NBA record for assists in a rookie season is. Mark Jackson with 868.
Yeah, doubled him.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, guys used to come into the NBA ready to play.
Yes.
Mark Jackson played 18 years of college basketball.
And I was going to say 82 games, 10.6 assists per game in his rookie year. I think that's like an unbreakable record.
Yeah, probably is.
Yeah.
He was a very good passer.
Yeah.
He's a real bozo person. The Jazz will tell you that. He was in the locker room and tried to dissect the locker room when he played here for his lone season. But yeah, really could rack up those dimes.
Yeah.
Hey, Isaiah's had a promising year, concerning year. He's better than I thought he was going to be.
Definitely.
But the flaws that he had in college have just followed him. You
Yes.
know, his shooting numbers are pretty frightening. 25% from the three-point line. Free throws are at 68%. Like, the indicators, we were talking about Cooper Flagg off the air. It's like, you look at every indicator for Cooper Flagg, it's like, this dude's going to be an elite shooter, an elite defensive player, a go-to offensive option. Like, he's going to be awesome. The things about that you're trying to project forward for Isaiah Collier are the exact same questions I think we had a year ago.
Yes.
Now, his NBA readiness, the passing is better than I thought, but everyone said, who watched him closely, and a lot knew him well, was like, hey, he wasn't passing to anyone in college.
Yeah.
Like, it wasn't passing to anybody. And if you watch USC, they were a mess. But yeah, congrats to Isaiah. And then he followed up with 17 and 12 last night. He's got 11 double-doubles on the year.
Impressive.
It's really good. So he's had some really bright spots. At the very least, you didn't totally whiff on a guy.
Yes.
You know, it's someone you can bring back next year and continue to develop some value into. And I think that's how you feel about all the young guys, even though, as we mentioned, Cody Williams' season coming to an end, and certainly a very disappointing season. Never really even had the game that you would point back and be like, if he can just do that, he's going to be good. You didn't even get that from him. But, again, his youth, his body needing to fill out, his confidence in himself, I think are all positives. And the fact that he, again, I've said it a lot, has it between the ears. I think he's a really smart kid. And as the Jazz at some point decide they need to play defense, which did not happen last night, Cody Williams can factor into that. And yeah, the Jazz have given up 140 points in 3 straight games, the first team to do that in 35 years.
Yeah. We can use that to talk about the last week.
Okay.
The only game where they did not get 140 dropped on them was by the Hornets. Shocker. 110-106 game there. And then 143-105 against Houston, 140-112 against Indiana, and then 147-134 shootout versus Atlanta.
So, big picture, the Jazz have just totally lost the plot.
Yeah.
They've just lost containment of the season.
Yes.
The players have, with all due respect, mostly checked out. They're not playing hardly anybody. They're playing these skeleton crew teams or rosters to go out there. And it's unfortunate. It is what you have to do. And we had said a week ago today, the Hornets game was the biggest game of the season. You had to lose that game if you really wanted to have the opportunity to potentially, have the worst record in the NBA and guarantee you couldn't fall any further than 5. And they did, 110-106. They had some chances to win the game. It was close. And the Hornets pulled it out. So Jazz get swept by Charlotte in 2 of the biggest games, and certainly they're not going to catch Charlotte this year. They would have to win out to catch Charlotte, so that's not going to happen.
All right, next week for the Jazz. Hosting Portland on Wednesday. Hosting OKC on Friday. That's the last home game of the year. and then end the season in Minnesota on Sunday.
So, some good, some bad.
Yep.
Portland was statistically eliminated from the playoffs yesterday, so they had an outside chance. And, like Sacramento hasn't played great. Now, Sacramento just went and beat Cleveland, so good for them.
Yeah.
Along those lines, you think okay, well, Portland, they probably play one more game before they play the Jazz. I haven't looked up their schedule. They probably do. They're probably totally checked out. So that's a game you could potentially win, conceivably. Still, the Jazz aren't going to have Lauri Markkanen. They're not going to have John Collins because they set up their, return to play dates, I think, after that Wednesday. So I don't think you're going to see them at all. I still think the Jazz probably lose that game, but it's winnable. OKC on Friday is probably somewhat sneaky winnable, the same way Sacramento just went into Cleveland and won, like I mentioned, because OKC is also going to be checked out, not playing for much, just wanting to be healthy. I still think the Jazz wanting to lose makes them worse than Oklahoma City's worst team. And then the same thing, Minnesota, the West is crazy.
That could be – Minnesota's going to have everyone available for that game. They are currently the 7th seed, so they're a play-in team as of right now. But all the way, them, the 6th-seeded Golden State Warriors, and the 5th-seeded LA Clippers are all tied.
And the Grizzlies.
And the Grizzlies, who are at 8. Yes.
Yeah, so teams 4 through 8 are all tied in losses.
Yes.
I've never seen anything like this going into the final game of the season, which makes it really exciting. But, the Jazz catching Minnesota on Sunday, that's not going to be a game you're accidentally going to win on the road at all. I guess Portland and OKC, keep an eye on. But, the Jazz really are the worst team in basketball right now.
Yes.
It's not just like, hey, they're trying to lose these games. The Jazz couldn't win, I don't think, if they tried.
Yeah.
So I expect the Jazz to win out. They'll finish on a 12-game losing streak. They'll have lost 22 of their last 23 games, which is as good a tanking as you can do.
Yeah.
Their one win was over the Wizards, who are going to be the second worst team in the NBA. And I think that's where your upside goes. Now, there's a chance the Jazz actually get a little breathing room and could fight to win on Friday if they wanted to, because I think we can look at the Wizards' upcoming schedule. Because the Jazz, as we mentioned, are 16-63. They have the worst record in the NBA. How far back are they?
They are 1.5 games away from the Wizards. The Wizards are 17-61 right now. So they have one more win and one more game to play.
Yeah, so they're truly one game back because the Wizards have just played one fewer games.
Yes.
So that's where the half game comes in. But they're a true one game back, which is a good place to be. That's where you want to be if you are tanking.
And if we look at the upcoming schedule for Washington, they're going to be in Indiana, first game of the week, probably a loss.
Going to get crushed there, yeah.
Yes. But then the next 3 games, they're going to host the Philadelphia 76ers, who have been awful for like the last month.
Are the worst. Actually are. When I say the Jazz is the worst team, Philly is actually the worst team. I think Philly's lost 10 straight.
Yeah.
They are trying to lock up again that top 6 seed, and I think they're close to doing it if they haven't done it already. But they've lost 11 in a row. So, yes, probably a decent chance Washington wins that game.
And then the next 2, Chicago. Chicago's been an up-and-down team. Odds are Chicago wins that game. But then, again, ending the year against another tanking team, the Miami Heat. So I would say up to 3 winnable games.
Yeah, the interesting thing, Chicago and Miami are the 2 9 and 10 seeds in the Eastern Conference right now. Chicago technically could still catch Atlanta. By the time those 2 teams play, maybe that won't be possible. They might not be able to jump up and catch them.
Yeah.
But Chicago is 7-3 in their last 10. They're playing pretty well. There's a chance Miami, because Miami can't fall out of the play-in tournament, will have already decided that they're the 10 seed overall. They can't catch Chicago or Atlanta, whoever's sitting there at 9. So they might not play anybody.
Yes.
So that's where the Jazz have no concern about Minnesota not trying to win. Miami may not be trying to win, and Washington beats them on accident. Yeah. But I think there's at least a 50-50 chance they beat the 76ers coming up midweek, and I don't think the Jazz have any 50-50 games.
With that said, we didn't do this yet. I project the Jazz to go 0-3.
Yes, 0-3 for sure. I think the Jazz are going to finish at 16.
And I don't think there's a world where the Wizards go 0-4 to end the season.
Okay.
I don't know. Like I said, I think there is up to 3 winnable games. Like Indiana and Chicago in all likelihood are losses for the Wizards. But I think you take at least one of Philly and Miami.
Okay. And the nice thing is, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
If the Jazz lose out, they control their destiny. That was the advantage of losing that game to Charlotte a week ago today. You can fall no further than 5. Now, as I've said, I don't think there's a huge difference in this draft between 5 and 4 or 5 and 6.
Yeah.
Whatever. It's Con Knipple, it's Trey Johnson, it's Common Malawash, it's all these names that are being thrown around. Fine. Whatever.
Yeah.
One of them will be there at 5, one of them will be there at 6, and you'll take whoever's there at 6. You want to be top 1.
Yeah.
You'd love to be top 2. Top 3, you're happy. Top 4, you're okay. But you really want to be top 1 because Cooper Flag's awesome.
Yeah.
So, all All right, I guess we don't need to pay attention to Charlotte. We don't need to
No,
pay attention
no.
to New Orleans, certainly.
Yeah.
New Orleans is suddenly 5 games ahead of the Jazz
Yeah.
in the standings, so 5.5, actually.
Um,
It's been nice, honestly. After they lost that Charlotte game, I don't have to look around what anyone else is doing other than maybe the Wizards, and the Wizards usually aren't playing, so I'm not
correct
ahead
me
to
if I'm
cover it.
wrong. Isn't it like not possible at this point for Charlotte to catch the Jazz because they're 3.5 games back?
So what is the wins? Let me pull up the
19
league
for the
standing.
Wizards.
So
I
if
mean,
the Jazz
sorry,
could-
19 for the Hornets.
So the Jazz could still win out.
Okay,
If
yeah,
the Jazz won out, they would win 3 games. They could sit at 19.
yeah.
Tied with Charlotte, and then you could lose a coin toss. So
Okay.
yes, you could technically still catch them. You're 1 loss away from being locked into one of the
Yes.
2 worst records.
I always forget that it's a coin toss and not based off season series. I always thought it was that for some reason.
Yeah, not in the lottery.
Yeah.
It is in the playoffs.
Okay.
There's actual tiebreakers if you make the playoffs. Lottery, all a coin toss. They
Gotcha.
don't reward you for losing games to get a higher draft pick. So yeah, that's where they go with that. Anything else?
No, that's it.
All right, let's take a quick break. When we come back, we will get your mailbag questions. Stick around. More Jazz Notes coming up next. Welcome back to the Jazz Notes podcast. Ben Anderson, Chandler Holt. All right, as I mentioned, follow us on Twitter at Ben's Hoops and see Holt Sports. Read us at KSLSports.com. You can also find us at Blue Sky at those same Twitter handles where we get to our mailbag. And you can DM us. You can use Blue Sky. You can wait till I send out the prompt, which I do every Monday. Respond to that, and we will answer your questions on the mailbag. Where do we start?
Let's start with a DM question from Hayden on X. He's wondering if there's any info on Salt Lake Summer League. Is it happening? Where? And is it the same teams as last year?
This is all I know because Justin Zanuck was on the broadcast for the Rockets game because he was in Houston. He's been traveling and scouting, of course, and doing all kinds of crazy stuff. But he was talking about Cody Williams and some of the young guys, and he said, I think a lot of them will play in our summer league in Utah in July.
Okay.
That's the first I've heard of it. I know the Jazz like doing it.
Yeah.
Going to be a big seller this year because the Jazz are going to have a top 5 pick on their roster. So there's going to be a lot of excitement about that, and people like cheap or free basketball, so people are going to be willing to come to that. Who was in the summer league?
I'm pretty sure it was Memphis,
Last year.
OKC, and Philadelphia.
So Philly would potentially add another top 6 or 7 pick.
Yep.
If it doesn't go to Philly, it goes to OKC. So maybe OKC would have another very high draft pick. And Memphis. Memphis is not going to have a big draft pick if they have one at all. I think they traded it to get off of Marcus Smart. But regardless, you're going to Justin Zanuck said they're going to have one.
Okay.
Usually they announce it right around this time too. I'd have to look at when I wrote the article last year, but they usually announce it close to the end of the season. So they're going to have one, which is exciting.
All right, now moving into the X replies. First up from Brady NBA. How many players 3 years and younger will we have on the team next year? Seems like there will have to be some cuts. I'm going to tie this in with another question from Tiefers.
Okay.
That says, set the over-under for how many guys on the current roster are back next year. So 3 years and under, and then just everyone.
By the way, the Jazz announced the Summer League last year on April 9th. We're recording this on April 7th.
Okay.
So it could be literally any minute.
Yeah.
Sorry, will you repeat the question? I was Googling.
So
how many young guys are going to be back on the team?
And then Tiefers says over-under for the whole roster. How many guys will be coming back?
Most of them.
Yes.
Honestly, it's just we like to think that nobody's coming back next year. They're making major overhauls. Like, first of all, they've drafted these guys. They've invested a lot in them. It's a lot of time to just say cashing out. So, maybe the interesting thing is rank who's the safest player to return next year. It's probably Taylor Hendricks.
Yeah.
Just because his trade value is at an all-time low.
Yeah.
Cody Williams trade value is probably at an all-time low as well. But then again, maybe you trade him because you're like, well, we don't think he's an NBA player and you can get off him early, but I kind of don't think that's going to be the case. I think Bryce is probably back. I think Bryce has honestly played really well the second half of the year.
I was about to say, I was looking at all the younger guards, and I was going to say Bryce out of all of them.
Kyle Filipowski,
Yes.
probably back. He's had a pretty great rookie season, lost amongst all the other issues that have been going on with the basketball team.
I would imagine Isaiah Collier comes
And
back.
then probably Collier.
Yeah.
And that's 5 young guys that we've already mentioned?
Yeah.
And then...
Not to say that Keontae, Walker Kessler, and all these guys are not
Walker. Walker's absolutely back
Yeah.
as well. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
Excuse me, Walker, yes.
And
So that's 6 guys.
yeah. And specifically for Keontae and anyone else we haven't mentioned, not to say they won't come back, but it's just Keontae George probably has the highest trade value of other than Walker, but you're not really trading for Walker, or your asking price is higher than what people want to give.
Again, 32 games since Keontae George has been coming off the bench. And I'm not trying to tell you that like Keontae is something that he's not. We know what Keontae is.
Yeah.
But his 32 games since coming off the bench, 17 points, 5 assists, 4 rebounds, even 40% from the floor, 35% from three. Like he is Jordan Clarkson right now. He's got to get better. Jordan was a better player when he was sixth man of the year than Keontae is right now.
Yeah.
But like that's the role he's evolving into. He's turning into that type of guy. He's probably got to shoot 3 or 4% better from the floor, which means he's got to start making his layups. And there's been some ups and downs in that area.
Yeah.
But he's better today than he was last year at this time.
100%.
Like he's really improving. He's just got to get better in a couple of different areas, which like now he's got to figure out how to be more consistent on the defensive end, and he's got to make his layups better.
Something to tie this into the most recent game, he had like 19 points in his first 10 minutes on the floor. And I tweeted this out. It was like all of his shots were like really good shots, like coming in the
smart
offense.
shots.
Exactly. And I was like, he could have a really big night if he continues to shoot these kind of shots. He ended up chucking a little bit throughout the game, but he ended with 35.
He's also in a weird role. Again, it's why I have a hard time trying to pretend we know what any of these guys are. None of the roles they're playing right now are accurate to the role they're going to be on a good team.
Yes.
Now, maybe Keontae actually will be a good six-man scorer. Maybe that is his role. Maybe he is Jordan Clarkson going forward. And those guys are always flawed. It's why they're six men, but they have value.
Yeah.
I don't think the league is wrong in thinking that those guys have value. Generally, you get these bench units that have a couple of dogs on them, some real defensive players, maybe a decent, kind of journeyman, big man, but like can play, a vet who wants to win somewhere. And then you need a guy who like for long stretches of games needs to carry an offensive load. And if Keontae can do that at 43% from the floor and 35% from three, you can deal with him never being a good defensive player.
Yeah.
Like he doesn't need to be Drew Holiday. He needs to be somewhat passable, maybe get a couple of steals a game, maybe make a couple of plays on the defensive end, but not be like a very reliable defensive player. But you come off the bench, you torch other second unit players, and that's who you are. Like, and that might just be what his role is going forward, which is not a miss, especially with the 16th overall pick. Again, Jordan Clarkson's a superstar hit as a second-round overall draft pick, or a second-round draft pick.
Yeah.
Lou Williams, those guys that did that for their entire careers were really successful players. Jamal Crawford, really successful players. Keontae just might be that, which is not a bad thing. It just might be what his role is going forward. And the truth is the Jazz don't know what their plan is either. I mean, again, they probably have like some pathways laid out. If you land Cooper, what do you think that means? If you land Dylan Harper and he's going to be your starting point guard going forward, do you need to sell one of your point guards now when the price is high still? I think all of those are on the table, certainly.
Yeah.
But yeah, you just, again, I go back to the story of Danny Ainge thinking they were going to draft Kevin Durant. And when they didn't, they decided to trade for Kevin Garnett and they won a title. Plans are stupid, actually. Don't have a plan. Or have several contingency plans because you don't control the outcome. Maybe you draft Cooper and he hurts his ankle in the summer league. It's just like there's so many things you can't control. So just wait until late June before we know actually what the thought's going to be. But yeah, I think there's a high chance most of the young players are back still.
Yes, and to tie it into the whole roster, I would be surprised if there's more than like 2 players on the Jazz roster who get traded or whatever this offseason.
Yeah, like it's not going to be 2022 where Bojan Bogdanovic, Rudy Gobert, Donovan Mitchell, Royce O'Neal, whatever, all got traded. I would be surprised if the Jazz got rid of Collin, John Collins, Lowry Markin, whatever other veteran you want to throw in there. I think that's probably somewhat unlikely, but there, I guess, are scenarios. Jordan Clarkson in that conversation as well.
Yeah, and this makes sense, but I feel like there's only that big of a switch when your team is also switching the direction or their goal, right? Like that Jazz team, they were switching from trying to contend to rebuild. Like they did a whole switch for their vision, and then that is when you have that massive overhaul. So yeah, like maybe you see one of John Collins, Jordan Clarkson, et cetera, these other guys go, but I don't think it's going to be like if you're doing the over-under for the 15-man Jazz roster, it's probably around like 13.
Yeah, 10 to 13, somewhere in that range. And some of the guys just leave because they are Svi Mikhailuk or whatever. So.
Okay, next up from Holly Hardy. Any word on who will represent the Jazz at the draft?
It was Thurl Bailey last year. Colin Sexton did it the year before that.
Yep.
Yeah, you know what? Have Isaiah Collier go do it. Like, that's the thing. I think that's probably like what I honestly haven't heard. I don't know.
Yeah.
There are some internal names that I guess behind the scenes I could speculate on. I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
But you had a good idea, maybe like a hockey person.
Yeah.
Would be kind of fun. Just say like, hey, hockey was a good idea. There's just like not a ton of crossover, unfortunately. You know what I mean? But yeah, have Logan Cooley go and do it, or Dylan Gunther or something like that would be very cool. I think that'd be fun. I don't think teams have really done that a whole lot. I actually think that'd be a really cool idea. But yeah, have Isaiah Collier go do it. Be like, Isaiah, you are a hit. We think you're going to be a part of the team going forward. Or like Taylor. That would be awesome. Have Taylor Hendricks do it. Or like Cody Williams as a vote of confidence. Like, we think you guys are going to come back and be a part of our future.
Yes.
And we're investing that, like, you are going to be the face of this guy wherever we draft because you're going to have a pretty good idea of who the Jazz are picking depending on what happens on lottery night. So it's a good question. I honestly don't know.
Another idea, maybe you like send someone from one of the last times the Jazz were in this top pick discussion. Like maybe you send Darren Williams out
Williams.
there. Yeah.
Sure.
All right. Next up from Sarah. Throughout this season, how are the players in the locker room? They are playing a season where the management doesn't necessarily care about wins. So what is their approach to playing the season? How do they stay upbeat?
Well, the young players are happy to be playing.
Yeah.
And like anything, like the youth at your workplace kind of brings in hopefully like an entertainment aspect. And like that's the funny thing about Keontae. I think Keontae gets kind of a weird reputation. I'm not pretending I know exactly like what it is behind the scenes.
Yes.
He has games where like the Jazz are terrible and you go in the locker room and he's like a little weird, like goofy and like kind of silly. And like sometimes I think it has bugged people. Sometimes I also wonder if like maybe you have to have that guy.
Yeah.
In this year where this season has been pretty dreadful, I think, for everybody involved, maybe having like the lighthearted guy who's funny and like the Jazz always post videos of him on social media of him like goofing around on the court at the end of practice after shooting, like he makes a shot and runs off screaming. It's like maybe you actually need somebody to break the tension and keep everyone a little bit light on their toes, even if it feels ill-timed without context. Maybe having that guy around actually is helpful. And I'm just using Keontae as an example. I'm not like trying to advocate that like that's who you have to be or anything. I'm just saying like I think sometimes we misdiagnose like that guy's not taking it seriously. It's like these guys are playing so hard and the stress is so high. Maybe having a guy who can break through that is actually a good thing.
Yeah. And like I feel like at the end of the day, like you're playing the sport that you love. You're out there on the court. Like of course it is suck and all these guys are competitive and they want to win games. But and also like I feel like all like overall there's a good chemistry between everybody. So yeah, I feel like I don't know.
Talking to Lowry, like I think there's clearly he wants to be in the playoffs at some point.
Yes.
Like Lowry recognizes he's entering his prime. He wants to be in the playoffs. He also just signed a $200 million contract. He's a star here. He is beloved here. I think the Jazz talk him through stuff. Like I think they're like involve him in conversations of like what the future is for him and what their plans are. Like I think he's not naive to it. So Lowry's not like devastated by it. You know, John Collins is probably focused on this as potentially a contract year for him. He played out of his mind, so he played great, and he gets a big opportunity, and the Jazz seem to really like him. So I think he's fine. The one guy I guess I would maybe be concerned about, and I don't because he's got just the best personality and approach ever, is Jordan Clarkson.
Mm-hmm.
Because Jordan's career is winding down.
Yeah.
And he wants to win another Sixth Man of the Year award. He's talked to me about that. He'd love to win a title. He thinks if he's good enough to play Sixth Man of the Year on a team, they're good enough to win a title. That's kind of how he views it. And this was like a wasted year towards the end of his career, unfortunately. Like he didn't get a chance to prove that, and he didn't get traded somewhere to do that. Maybe he gets that opportunity next year. But I think that's been the approach. And, Colin Sexton's to steal a term, he's a maniac from Will Hardy. It's just like, I don't think Colin thinks that way.
Yeah.
So I actually don't think it's been that hard. I'm sure it's not been easy, but it's not a bunch of depressed dudes running around. Like everyone's fine. And they've already made their vacation plans, which I think they're happy about. Some guys still have 2 months left in the NBA season. Like the season's just starting for a lot of teams. The Jazz season's been over for a while. Yeah. So that's not the hardest thing.
Next up from Utah Jazz optimist, the Great Bambus. Thoughts on a trade with Philly for Paul George and their lottery pick, assuming it's 2 to 5, for Lowry and whatever other picks players they want to make the deal work.
Philly's not going to give up a top 6 pick.
Yeah.
Right? This is exactly what they need. They're in salary cap hell. They need as many good, cheap young players as they can. And the thing about Paul George having a bad year is like he's still going to have value around the NBA. I get his contract's a mess right now. There will be teams that think they're one player a year or one player away that will still trade for Paul George. I know he makes way too much money. I get it.
Yeah.
There will be a team that's like Portland. You know what I mean? Will be like the 6th seed next year out of nowhere. Donovan Clingan clicks in. Whatever lottery pick they get is good. And they're like, what if we added Paul George? There's something like that. Indiana. You know what? Go reunite with Indiana to play like the last couple of years of your career. Like Indiana's really good.
True.
They could use a Paul George. That would be cool. They need a good defensive player on the wing. So I think you're not getting a lottery pick and Paul George. In fact, you're probably still maybe giving up something with Paul George. Where it gets interesting, this is where I was playing with the trade machine before, is like, as much as we've talked about like who's the star that would fit with next to the Jazz, like the pie in the sky is Giannis.
Yes.
And then it's like, would they kick the tires on Devin Booker? I don't think Devin Booker's getting traded, though it's not up to him. It's like the most Danny Ainge move is like, yeah, we traded for Bradley Beal. We being the Utah Jazz, not me speaking for the Jazz. Which is like, this is Danny Ainge not falling victim to the groupthink of the NBA where everyone's like, that's the worst player, that's the worst contract. Washington wasn't ever really great with him. Phoenix got worse when they had him. And Danny Ainge is like, correct. That's a 3-time All-Star who's a former All-NBA player who averaged 30 points a game 5 seasons ago. And yeah, he makes way too much money, but the salary cap's going up 10% every year. And we think if we come in and let him play a bunch, he's going to be an expiring contract who averages 22 points a game, and we can trade him for 2 more future first-round draft picks.
Yeah.
And actually, if you're trying to put like a little bit of semblance of a basketball team around Cooper Flagg or Ace Bailey or whoever, like, you've never heard that Bradley Beal's a bad guy.
Yeah.
No one's ever said that. So the Jazz trade John Collins and Colin Sexton and KJ Martin and Svi Mykhailiuk for Bradley Beal and all of those firsts that they gave up to Phoenix for their unprotected first and take them back. And it's like the ultimate swindle of, we gave you the ammunition to get off of Bradley Beal, and we're taking Bradley Beal and all the ammunition back.
Yeah.
Like, that's such a Danny Ainge move to me, right? Like, that's the ultimate long game of, now you have the picks that we're going to gladly take back from you. And they're not super valuable picks. They're a bunch of late first rounders, but you're going to give up 2 or 3 firsts to get off of Bradley Beal. And yeah, Brad has 2 years and $100 million left on his deal. It's a lot. But you're paying that money to John Collins and Colin Sexton and KJ Martin anyways next year. So whatever, just eat that $50 million. Then he's got a player option for 57. He's probably picking it up, but like, maybe he plays so good that he's not. And that's just like a weird bet you make. I'm just saying, like, that's the trade that actually, if you're talking about Paul George to the Jazz.
Yes.
If you're buying low on a bad contract, Bradley Beal's probably the team, because you have a real desperate team in Phoenix who now has some draft capital that you're familiar with, and you just take it all back plus Bradley Beal, and then you flip him for more draft picks.
Honestly, Isaiah Collier, Beal, Cooper Flagg, Larry Markkinen, Walker Kessler.
It's like not the worst team you've ever seen.
Yeah.
You know, and also it's not good enough that if you want to pull the plug and tank midway through the season, you can still do it.
Absolutely.
Like, Bradley Beal can kind of go either direction.
Yeah.
So that's the value. That's like a weird, silly hypothetical that like is not, I would not rule out, because the Jazz are still in a spot where they can take advantage of teams who need to unload money. So teams that are desperate and need expiring contracts, which, by the way, we might have another question in here, I think, about expiring contracts. Like,
yes,
this is the trade. That's actually probably more realistic than who's a current All-Star.
Yes.
It's who's the former All-Star. We actually answered this question last time. I said Julius Randle. Like, it's Bradley Beal.
Yeah.
It's crazy, but Bradley Beal, again, the myth is that he's a bad player. He's just got the worst contract in the NBA.
Yes.
He's a fine player. He's not a great defensive player, but he's not totally zilch on that end. And yeah, he's a 17-point-per-game scorer right now because he plays next to 2 guys who do exactly what he does better than he does. If he came to the Jazz, he would be up over 20 points day one, no questions asked.
Yes. I feel like unless you're a superstar, the overall like opinion or projection of whoever you are as a player is never 100% correct. And I feel like a lot of that is dependent on your contract. If you're a young player who's still on your rookie deal and awesome in year 3, you're like, oh, that's one of the best like bang for your buck players in the entire NBA. And then he gets his contract.
You get paid.
And then even if you have the exact same year, you're like, oh, that's a bad deal.
It's a bad deal.
Yeah.
Yep. So that's just like, again, purely hypothetical. But as we get into this conversation, like, don't rule out the Jazz being wacky still.
Yeah.
Don't think that like we know exactly what's going to happen next, or the Jazz wouldn't like continue to deconstruct. And that's a good deal. Like, if you could get back future firsts for John Collins and John Collins and Jordan Clarkson and KJ Martin, who has not done anything since the real starters left the team. That's a good trade.
Yeah.
I get that, like, you feel like you're saddled with him. You're saddled with him for 2 years. And you know what? If you like him and he's good, you get the end of his career once the guy you draft top 5 is starting to like come into his own, is in year 3 and year 4, and you're trying to make a playoff push, and you re-sign him at a lower number.
Yes.
The holdup here, obviously, is that Bradley Beal would have to agree to be traded to the Jazz.
Yeah.
He's still got the no trade clause. So, but anyways, sorry, long hypothetical for something that I thought was kind of silly, but there's some sense there.
Yes. Next up, as you said, tying into that whole conversation, Tiefers again says, we have a lot of money in expiring contracts. Who are the teams lined up to be in the market for expiring deals this offseason?
Yeah, the Suns.
Yeah.
76ers. So that's where Paul George comes in.
Yes.
Miami,
yeah,
potentially. I would put Miami down as a potential team that like John Collins might make sense there. He would fit actually pretty well next to Bam Adebayo, I think.
True.
His ability to space the floor. So, yeah, there's teams that need to cut cash.
Yeah. All right. I believe the last question here from Jay Christian. If Jazz don't win the lottery, should they trade Lowry maybe to Houston?
It shouldn't have anything to do with whether they win the lottery.
Yeah.
That's my only point. Like, everyone's kind of talking about this. I don't know what the lottery is going to do for the Jazz's plans. Like, if you win Cooper Flagg, again, maybe you just say, well, Lowry's got your number 2 guy. Or Lowry moves to the number 2 spot, which is who Lowry is, and you've got your number 1 guy. You've already figured out your number 2. Like, you're not back to the question of 2 years from now trying to figure out, okay, now how do we get the number 2 guy?
Yeah.
You got him. He's Lowry Markkinen. He's on your
Yes.
team. It's great. And he's under contract for 4 more years. And he likes Utah. And he's got the ideal role now. And actually, he can be the number 1 next year. And then Cooper Flagg overtakes him in year 2, year 3, year 4, and you're golden. Or maybe you just say, no, reset button, try to get A.J. DeBonsa, Cam Boozer, or Darren Peterson next year. So you just play Cooper Flagg 60 games. He comes down with a mysterious illness, mononucleosis, the second half of the season, and you bench him, and you tank, and you get the your next lottery pick, and then that's your team. I don't know. I don't know what this is going to be. And then again, we don't know how good the player is going to be. If Ace Bailey comes in, gets to the NBA in year 1, is like, oh, he averages 22 points a game on 36% three-point shooting and 45% from the floor, and he is a legit number 1, like, that changes how you're going to move your team. So, again, I don't know. And I don't know what whatever happens in the lottery shouldn't actually dictate, I think, what you do. And in all honesty, I don't think it should.
This all ties into, like, you should never really have a step-by-step plan.
Yeah.
With your team. And this is something that, like, we have sort of tossed around, which is, like, if you get Flagg, then your plan changes to revolve around anything that happens with him. Like, let's build around him. Let's build him up and then see who fits next to him. And then if it's 2 through 4, it's like, okay, let's see how we can sort of add them to our plan.
Mm-hmm.
But then again, you shouldn't really have a plan because things can change in the snap of a finger.
Right. You trade for Bradley Beal.
Yeah.
Things are different. We got a late question on Blue Sky.
Okay.
Alex says, can you grade the young guys based on expectations versus production? That's probably a bigger segment that we will do after the season.
Yes.
But I do like your second question. He says, other than gaining weight, what skills should Cody focus on the most this offseason? And I do like that you put on the other than gaining weight, because I've said that a lot.
Yeah.
Here's an important thing to remember. Walker Kessler came back his sophomore season. He's like, I put on weight. I'm way stronger. I feel way more explosive. And you didn't see it at all.
Yeah.
But year 3, all of a sudden, like, he played with it for a year. He added even more weight. Like, it was the second addition of weight that really changed things for Walker, not the first one.
Yes.
So, like, as much as we've talked about Cody getting bigger, it's not going to happen this summer alone. Now, he might add 15 pounds, but it might be the 15 pounds he adds between year 2 and year 3 that actually make the difference versus, oh, I'm just finally up to being light in the NBA. Like, he's unplayable because of his weight right now.
Yeah.
He might just get up to the point where it's like, well, I'm barely playable at this weight. He may need year 2 to 3 of adding all the weight before it's like, oh, that's an NBA body the way his brother has.
And to tie in with that, first of all, Jalen Williams played 3 years of college compared to 1 for Cody Williams. And when Jalen came into the NBA, he's 1 to 2 inches shorter?
Yeah.
As a rookie, he was 25 pounds heavier than Cody Williams.
So Cody needs to legitimately add 30 pounds. And it's crazy to think he's going to do that in his second year. In fact, if you watched the Jazz game, I think maybe it was also against the Rockets. When did Taylor Hendricks talk? Whatever it was, when Taylor Hendricks spoke, he looks huge.
Oh.
He's like, his legs are huge,
Yeah.
his shoulders are huge, his chest is huge. Well, again, that wasn't year 1 to year 2, actually. As much as we like to think it was, I've had the entire year off to sit in the weight room. Like, that's the year 2 to year 3 jump as well. Like, it might just take a little while for Cody. Now, again, look at Taylor Hendricks. Taylor Hendricks said he's 243 pounds right now. He came to the league at 215.
Yeah.
So he's added 30 pounds, but it took 2 years. It's going to take Cody 2 years to add 30 pounds.
And
but he's going to add 30 pounds. He's going to go from 180 to 210 and probably needs to be up at 220. He probably needs to add 40 pounds. Taylor Hendricks did say he was going to try and drop 10 pounds to play it around 235.
Yeah, that's what I was
big
about to
boy
say.
though, man. That's a big man.
That is a huge, and like for his play style, like assuming that he can, especially after the leg injury, like get his athleticism and explosiveness back. I think that weight will benefit his play style so much.
Yeah, just crash into people.
Yeah.
Be that athletic and crash into people and bully people. I don't think he's afraid of bullying people. I think he likes playing that way, and he did it in college.
Mm-hmm.
He just wasn't strong enough to do it his first year in the NBA. No, man, I would be really excited about Cody if I was a Jazz, or about Taylor if I was a Jazz fan. That's, again, maybe the injury and just coming back mentally is going to take a while, but the physical growth and his skill set, again, 45% from the floor, 37% from three for his career. Maybe it's 35%, whatever it is. It's like, really impressive. Really impressive person and body to be working with.
This probably should have been a part of our weekly news. Kind of passed my mind, but he said that he wants to get back out there in May, and like immediately the thought was like, is he going to play in summer league? But
got a text from the Jazz immediately, like that's not happening. Immediately.
Yeah, that just meant on court activities in May.
Yeah, which great. He said he thinks he's going to be ahead of schedule.
Yeah.
So no, that's all trending in the right direction. Seems like he'd be ready then for training camp and ready to go. But to answer the second part of your question, Alex, which is what skill should Cody add? I talked to Cody, and he said scoring with the ball in his hands, like he kind of wants to create that. I think that's really determined. That's really going to be determined by how heavy he can get.
Yeah.
I think it's 3-point shooting.
I was about to say.
It's just like as boring as that sounds, like when was Kyle Filipowski at his best this year? When he was shooting 50% from three.
Yeah.
Why did we all of a sudden say, like, Bryce Sensabaugh might be a guy you keep around? Shooting 43% from three all of a sudden.
Yep.
It's like, what did Bryce shoot his rookie season? He was under 30% from the 3-point line. He's over 40 now.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think Cody's going to add 10% to his 3-point shooting, but Cody Williams this year is at like 27% from three. If he added 8%, he's at 26% from three. If he added 8%, he's at 34%. All of a sudden, it's like, well, at least he can knock down occasional threes. Like, that's the easiest pathway.
Yes.
It's just like, go shoot 1,000 threes a day in the offseason and just be the guy who stands in the corner and knocks down threes if someone leaves you wide open.
Yeah. And then I feel like the physicality on defense and also like getting downhill on offense will come with the weight that he needs to put on this offseason as well.
Add 15 pounds, which is like kind of what we talked about. It's not the 30 that you need. It might not be the 40 that you need, but add the 15 that you actually have to be on the floor, which he will.
Yeah.
And then raise your 3-point shooting from 26% to 34%, which feels like a huge jump. He's only played 50 games. Some weird sample size stuff when you have an 0-of-6 game from the 3-point line. Like, get that up to 34%. Be strong enough to play defense and be one of the Jazz's better defensive players. And that's just like your ticket to a real 15 minutes on the floor. Not just like you're being gifted these minutes because they want to see what you have. It's like you actually earned 15 minutes by knocking down occasional threes and playing better defense.
Yeah.
I think that's what the next year looks like. And, I don't think the Jazz wanted him to be a 3-and-D player. Might be what he is. Just might be who he is until he gets bigger and maybe can dribble. But he might not ever get there.
Is that it for questions?
That's all I'm seeing.
Okay. So, as we mentioned, this is the last podcast of the regular season. When we come back next Monday, the Jazz will have 82 games under their belt, and they'll be done. I assume next week we'll just sort of do a full season sort of recap. Of course, talk about the last week like we normally do. But then over the next couple weeks throughout April, we're going to do some player grading, maybe some expectation talk, and then eventually we will get into our draft preview, lottery preview stuff.
Probably won't take that long.
True.
You know what I mean?
True.
Again, we are going to be less than a month out the next time we talk from the lottery. So we'll make sure you're all prepared. Maybe we'll even do like a player a day of the top 4 players.
Yes.
Leading up to the lottery. And if they fall to 5, we'll cover everyone 5 to 6 or whatever, 5, wherever the Jazz could be. But I think that's probably how we should approach it. Not totally sure when we're going to record Monday.
Yes.
There's a chance it's Tuesday based on Jazz availability. But we will break it all down for you. Thanks for listening. Thanks for the mailbag questions. As always, read us at KSLSports.com. We'll be back next week.